Big Daddy and I welcome you back to Old Aberdeen Cemetery. Let's finish our visit. This is the grave of Private John Wallace. He was probably a member of the party of federal soldiers that burned and looted the Isaac Jarman home on February 18, 1864, killing Mr. Jarman in the process. Wallace himself was wounded. A short time later, he was killed by Mr. Jarman's son. Military records indicate that Wallace was a deserter. This stone is symbolic in its location. The exact spot of Wallace's grave is unknown. Here lies the flag bearer of the 8th Mississippi Cavalry at Bryce's Crossroads on June the 10th, 1864, Ensign William E. Hogg. He was mortally wounded at Bryce's Crossroads and brought to Aberdeen, where he died on June the 18th. He was the only child of Thomas Jefferson and Elizabeth Reasons Hogg of Calhoun County, Mississippi. In the early spring of 1866, several local ladies made the trek to the Confederate plot where they decorated the 21 unmarked mounds, mostly believed to be Texans. They also decorated the graves of soldiers whose names were known on both sides, north and south. It's hard to notice, but the ground here is still not level. 3 burial trenches have been discovered here. One of these burial trenches contains 8 men, and their feet are to the north, inferring they may be northerners. The other 2 burial trenches contain 6 men each, with their feet to the east or west, as was convenient to the burial detail. There are a minimum of 5,500 Civil War dead buried here, both inside and outside the fence you see here. This marker is one of the markers created by the Miller brothers from Columbus. This is the grave of Graham McFarland and his deceased son. They are represented on the marker by the 2 cut roses, while the full-grown rose and the 5 buds on the bush represent Graham's wife and their 5 living children. This is the marker belonging to Jane Martin Dalton. It shows us St. John's Episcopal Church of Aberdeen before the roof was raised. She is credited with founding the church and making the building possible. If you are ever in Aberdeen and get a chance, you should probably visit St. John's Episcopal Church. The sanctuary has some of the most beautiful stained glass windows I have ever seen. The church has been involved at a very intricate level in the history of the town and probably will be for many years to come. St. James Church in Livingston, Alabama was also Miss Dalton's creation. This is the grave of a popular local dentist, Dr. Edmund Hewitt. He died while bathing, some believe skinny dipping, in the Tombigbee River. Several poems were written about his passing, including one by Henda, who was the first wife of Reuben Davis. Dr. Edmund Hewitt. I was a little bit disappointed to see that the storm that blew through here a couple years ago and knocked some trees down got the stone of Miss Mary Points. She was burned to death in 1852 when the skirts of her dress caught on fire. This stone has been presented in Stories in Stone and other books. You notice the stone's maker is a Mr. Turner from Mobile. This is the marker of Mr. John T. Fortson. As with other markers throughout the cemetery, this marker has several Masonic symbols carved on it. There's also a pragmatic verse around on the south side. John Fortson and his family moved to Monroe County, Mississippi in 1837. He and his wife Sarah had 5 children. They had a daughter who was also named Sarah. It was this Sarah's home that was burned to the ground in 1863 as Grierson's raiders made their way into Monroe County. This is the grave of Miss Fanny Ritchie. She became the last burial in the Old Aberdeen Cemetery when she was placed beside her husband in 1931. This is Mr. Ritchie's marker, also knocked over in the recent storm. Now let's make our way to our last grave of the day. This is the grave of Austin Pollard. He built his home that he named 10 acres and requested to be buried as close as possible to his home. As the camera pans around in just a second, if you look close enough, you look in between that brick home and that tree that sort of leans out in front of it, you can see the roof line of 10 acres. Mr. Pollard can gaze upon his home for eternity. Big Daddy and I would like to thank you for exploring with us today. This has been the Historic Old Aberdeen Cemetery. He says this cemetery tells great stories about the influence of not only Aberdeen, but Monroe County on the state of Mississippi, helping to make her what she is today. Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed it.